morning. The wind's kind of picking up and going down, so hopefully it's not too loud. So today, I'm gonna tell a story of how I got out of the Air Force. My first love and I decided we were gonna break up when I left for the Air Force, and she was going off to college, and we decided not to. So we stayed together for about another year, and then around that time, maybe a little less than a year after I'd left, we decided to call it off. She felt like we had grown apart. Well, I would have done anything to spend the rest of my life with her, so I was heartbroken. And now I'm feeling massively stuck in a place I don't want to be. And I feel like that wind's picking up. I should move to try to find a place where it's not going to be so loud. Doo-doo. I don't know. Maybe it's going to die down. Time out. Let me try over here. Okay, so I'm feeling massively stuck in the military, and all I want to do is, and I'm up in Dover, Delaware, and all I want to do is get back to Austin and try to win my first love back over. Well, I had gotten, there was a night where I had a lot to drink, and I was feeling a little suicidal, and thought, well, maybe if I tell my sergeant this, that'll be a way to get out. No, that didn't help. They just sent me to the, what do they call it, the pastorate in the military? Drawing a blank. Man, it's so windy. Just trying to wait to see if this wind's going to die down. So I might have to redo this video if it's too loud in the background. Okay, so that doesn't get me out. I just go to the church, talk with I forget what they call them on base. But anyway, I talked to the pastor at the church, and that's essentially the best of that. They're there if I need someone to talk to. So I'm approaching my 2-year mark. Actually, let me back up. There was a moment where I thought, well, that didn't work. Maybe I should say I'm gay to get out of the military, because they have a don't ask, don't tell policy. But if you tell, sorry, bud, you got to get out. So I was on a night shift one night, and I worked in a command center. So this is at night, not a whole lot of people there. And I was telling one of my coworkers, like, hey, man, I think I'm going to just say I'm gay to get out. Well, apparently someone overheard me and decided to tell on me. Snitches get stitches. Did you not know that? Nah, I don't know who told on me, but someone did, and I got called into the superintendent of the command post. I got called into his office, which wasn't a new thing. He's like, Airman Snyder. I'm like, yes, sir. He's like, well, it's been brought to my attention that you're gonna say you're gay so you can get out of the military. Is that true? And I felt like Kevin Hart in this moment where he jumps out and he's like, I wasn't ready, because I was unprepared for this moment. And I said, no, of course I'm not. And there goes that way to get out of the military. So then I'm approaching my 2-year mark. So this may not have been that much. It was probably like a year and a half into the military. And I'm approaching my 2-year mark. And they have this like Air Force wide email that goes out, and they say that if your career field has more people than needed, if it's overmanned, then you can apply and you can go from active duty to the Guard. Which if I did that, I could go back to Texas and do the Guard in San Antonio. I guess 1 weekend a month and 2 weeks out of the year. I'm like, hey, that's almost like getting out. So I applied, and you had to be in there for 2 years. Well, I applied and I got approved for literally on my 2-year mark. that I was able to get out. So I went from active to the guard, and at that point, I went and got in touch with a lot of my old buddies. One of which was doing a lot of drugs, and he was dealing them and had them readily available. And I found out what speed was. I found that out, and I guess at the time I kind of liked it. So, and it was free for me. So for about 8 months at that point, I got pretty hardcore into doing it. Now, I know it's not sexy, and it was like probably one of the darkest times of my life. In fact, I called the drug death because it felt like death. So at this point, I'm into the drugs, and I don't even want to go to the guard. I'm like, I'd rather just do drugs and figure my life out. So I look up what it means to not believe in like the war. What is that called? Man, I'm doing terrible on remembering things today. It is called When You Don't Believe with the War. Conscientious objector. Thank you, mind. Thank you. You took a little time on that one. So I knew what it meant. I knew what it was. I knew what the word was. I get a call. It was a Saturday morning, the first day I was supposed to report to duty. And my sergeant calls me and wakes me up, and she's asking, "Where are you?" And man, I was so hungover, and I was just telling her how, I really don't know if I believe in the war. And I was kind of going on. And she was like, "Are you saying you're a conscientious objector?" And I'm like, "I don't even know what that means." And she's like, "You know what, Airman Snyder, don't bother coming in. You're going back to Delaware." And click, hangs up the phone on me. And I'm like, "Oh shit, what did I just do?" Man, I start crying. I cried for like 2 hours. And I'm like, "Okay, get it together. We got to come up with a plan here." So I just start calling, I'm like looking up, like, who's in charge of the guard? Like who do I, administrative guard. And I find a number, I call it. And I tell them that I just palace chased. I just got from active to the guard. And to be quite honest, I don't even want to do that. Is there anything I can do to get out of this? Can I pay back my bonus or something? And the guy laughs, and he's like, "I don't think anyone's ever asked that. I'll call you back." About 2 of the longest hours of my life later, I get a call, "Airman Snyder," and I'm sniffling, I'm still crying. "Thinking about going back to Delaware?" I'm like, "Yes, sir." He's like, "You're not gonna believe this." But he said, not only did they say you can pay back your bonus and get out of this, just your unearned portion of it, which is only $800. Yeah, $800 to get out of a 6-year guard commitment, and I get an honorable discharge. Yes, please. So that got me out of that commitment. The stories of my life, I end up doing things that are unheard of, or just the unheard of things happen in my life. Just like yesterday's story, it's like, of course that would happen to me. I sometimes wonder if I would have just stayed in, I would have retired, how would my life have been? Because I've gone through so many ups and downs in my life. But when I look back and I think about the things that I did go through, I've gone through so much, but I've also lived a lot. I've experienced so many, even on the downsides, there was also an upside to all those downsides. And I learned so much about myself. I learned so many lessons, so much wisdom had come from all those experiences. And, when push came to shove, I figured out a way to do what I wanted to do. Now, I didn't have the foresight that I was going to go get into drugs after the Air Force and kind of take a few steps back in life before I could go forward. But when there's a will, there's a way. Sometimes it's hard to find that way, but I persevered, and I was stubborn enough to make an effort to figure that out. And I wanted out, and I did. Now, I did not get the first love back. We stayed in touch, and we kept the friendship, and I stayed in touch with her family. But I went a different route. I just kind of self-destructed. and my daughter was my oldest daughter at the time. She was 1. She was moving out of the country when I was coming back to Texas, and then my first love was long gone. So I just fell flat on my face and suffered for a little while before I chose to put my life back together. So that's the story of how I got out of the military. I learned a lot about myself while I was in. You know, I may not have liked it completely, but when I look back, there was so much I did like. I met a lot of amazing people that I stay in touch with all around the world, and I feel very blessed to have had that experience. There is a part of me that wishes I would have just stayed in longer, maybe stayed in my commitment. But if I did that, I wouldn't have had this wild, crazy story to share. So I hope you enjoyed that story. Cheers.